Mapping is basically the graphical representation of the locations on a two-dimensional space, we can say. So whenever there is a location, try to immediately mark it on the map, on an atlas. On a separate note, try to make note of them. Okay, so where is it located, why it is important. In mains, many subjects you have to draw the maps and you have to show the visual representation. On an average, we can definitely see around 10 questions out of 100, that is the weightage. The Indian Environment Ecology section, where a significant number of questions are directly related to the maps, and making a note of this separately and trying to revise it multiple times. When you do mapping, you have to visualize, you have to see it and try to picturize that. Okay, imagine yourself in that location, traveling in that location like that.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of VisionIAS related to mapping in civil service examination. And to talk about it, we have today an esteemed faculty of VisionIAS, Rajesh Sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Kapil.
Sir, before we discuss the importance of mapping and how it is it goes on in examination and all that, first, what is the overall importance of mapping, whether it's prelims, mains or whatever it is?
See, mapping is basically the graphical representation of the locations on a two-dimensional space, we can say. So, and mapping is required in every subject for that matter. Okay, so for example, in history, so when we talk about the different historical events, where would we imagine that happening? So on a specific location, specific region, so that for that visualization, map is required. Same is the case with, so let's say economics also. We're talking about the different types of economic activities, agriculture, industries, or any kind of transaction, imports, exports. It requires a spatial understanding. And that becomes very much significant in a subject like geography. Okay, so where it is completely based on map. Geography originated as a subject of map making, and so now to understand the various different geographical phenomena, so the spatial understanding is very much required. In UPSC, at all three stages, prelims, mains and interview, okay, so in my opinion, so it is definitely a very important one. So we know about the prelims, a good number of questions comes directly from mapping. In mains, many subjects you have to draw the maps and you have to show the visual representation, so the spatial distribution. And in interview also, so some of the questions related to your home state, home district, or even some of the distribution related questions, that how exactly we are going to answer it through that visualization, there it is going to be very much helpful.
Sir, like as you mentioned, prelims also has a good weightage of mapping, right? So how much questions come related to mapping, and what are the general topics related to mapping in prelims?
So on an average, every year if you count, so a minimum of 10 out of 100 questions are related to mapping in prelims. Okay, so it is really surprising. So I'd see many students not taking the mapping section so seriously. But if you keep everything aside, just the location based, okay, so you will find questions from geography directly, international relations, environment, or even some of the questions related to economics. Okay, so all these sections, there will always be questions related to the map locations. Where is it located? What is the significance? Okay, so and so about any particular event in international relations. Okay, so or the international summits like that. So total, on an average, we can definitely see around 10 questions out of 100. That is the weightage. Talking about the important sections with where the mapping is usually expected in prelims area. So the first one is obviously the world political locations where there is some recent issue is there, or those locations which are recently in news. Okay, so this is the most common thing: regions in news and the country. Every year, at least one question we will find it. And any international summits or so organizations headquarters like that. Okay, so that is one very important area we can definitely expect questions. So other than that, Indian physical geography, the most important part. Okay, so because most of the questions in Indian physical geography comes directly related to the mapping, whether it is a river or a mountain or even a let's say a lakes. Okay, so or even the locations like passes, glaciers and all, they are very much significant and you can easily cover through mapping. And the third important area according to me is environment. Okay, so the Indian Environment Ecology section, where a significant number of questions are directly related to the maps. For example, which national park is located in which state, or let's say biosphere reserves or Ramsar sites, recently declared Ramsar sites, or even in fact some of the wildlife related questions also, which specific type of wildlife species is found in which particular area, that can be easily covered through maps.
Correct.
Okay, so of course you have other channels, like you can also go through the material and try to read them. Okay, so you will find, okay, so Great Indian Bustard is found in Rajasthan. Okay, so that kind of list you will always get. But if you try to picturize and visualize through the maps, it becomes easy for you to so remember and recollect. So these are the very important area in prelims.
And if you have good command over mapping, it also aids in solving other questions, irrespective of whether it's economy, geography, or environment.
Yes, yes. Because so that understanding of map will give you better perspective about information or a concept, okay, which will make it easier for us to remember.
Correct, sir. Sir, and like if somebody has to start preparing for mapping now, specifically for prelims, what should be the approach of the student for that?
So it's a very common misconception. Preparing for mapping is somewhat like, okay, so you just open atlas and so mark important location and just try to remember. So that is practically impossible. People think that and try to do that also. I'm totally surprised. And another common way of making a list of all the important location, just list and just mug it up, and both are totally wrong. So according to me, best way of covering the map locations is through your GS syllabus only. Whatever you are reading through GS, okay, so whether it is geography or economics or international relations, so whenever there is a location, try to immediately mark it on the map, on an atlas. On a separate note, try to make note of them. Okay, so where is it located? Why it is important? We don't have to go into detail here.
Correct, sir.
We just need some brief idea, because UPSC never asks too detailed questions, but the area coverage is going to be much more broader. So you have to cover in a much more wider manner rather than deeper manner. Okay, so that is how through along with your GS, whenever you are finding a location, in geography obviously you will find more such locations. You are covering different mountains, you are covering different rivers, or even let's say, so we are talking about resource distribution, okay, industrial distribution. Whenever there is such kind of location, accordingly try to connect that. So what happens if you try to see it through this conceptual part, you will not see it as a fact. Okay, so and you try to connect with some background. Okay, so why Rocky Mountains are present along the western side of North American continent.
Right.
Okay, so because there is a continent oceanic convergent plate boundary over there, there is a subduction zone. Okay, so there is a compression because of that. So this kind of connection makes it easier for us to remember. So that is one way. And second obviously is through current affairs, because many of the questions are related to current affairs mapping part. Okay, so where any location which is recently in news, either because of disturbance or because of international summit, or because of so recently inaugurated economic location, let's say a port or airport. Okay, so or any newly discovered mineral resource in a particular area, or any major suppliers of so the minerals in the world which are recently in news. For example, DRC was asked so 2 years before. So because of the electric mobility and the industry associated with that. Right. So connecting with the current affairs, and in that current context you have to remember. One. Second, connecting through your so static GS part, and in that context making pointing them and remembering them, and making a note of this separately, and trying to revise it multiple times. And this is not just 1 or 2 days of exercise, or not even 1 or 2 weeks. This has to be done throughout the year at regular intervals. Then only you will be able to recall so many maps.
And sir, like what challenge generally students face while preparing mapping, specifically for prelims?
Yeah. So talking about the challenges, in fact, the most important challenges students face while so doing a mapping section is to identify which location is important and which one is not. Because for a person who is trying to see everything seems to be important, because everything there is some relevance, some so significance over there. It's very important that you identify the most important one and try to remember them first, because obviously you will not be able to remember every location. And second thing is those locations which are related to current affairs currently in news. Okay, so if a person is daily covering a newspaper throughout the year and making note of the important locations, they would know. And those, let's say if somebody has missed the newspaper for some time, or they had not made notes out of this, so it is not very easy to recollect. Okay, so it becomes too volatile. And other than this, so lack of visualization. When you do mapping, you have to visualize, you have to see it. and try to picturize that. Okay, imagine yourself in that location, traveling in that location like that. So that kind of visualization is also very important, and understanding the significance behind any location. Okay, so for example, let's say we are talking about a location like Hampi. Okay, so if at all you just have to see it as a Hampi location, you just okay. So this is a historical location. It was the capital of Vijayanagara Empire. Okay, so this is how normally anyone would see. You have to go through the actual so map around this and try to connect. For example, Tungabhadra river passes through Hampi.
Yes, sir.
And it is the entire location is in the northern part of Karnataka. Okay, so the Hyderabad Karnataka region it is so called, and to the semi-arid region. Okay, so and are there any national parks around? Are there any tiger reserves around? So this kind of connection is very much required. So this is a very important challenge usually the students face.
And sir, VisionIAS have also now started mapping classes for prelims. So how does our classes help tackle these challenges for the student?
So the smart mapping classes of VisionIAS, so which in fact we have been conducting this since last 8-9 years for our regular foundation students, and since last year we have made it open for others also, whoever is not part of VisionIAS also they can also join. The main idea is so this is mapping is a very important section in prelims, and it is most neglected section also, and to make this entire mapping section easier and to ensure that you get a thorough coverage of both static part as well as current affairs part. Okay, so the entire GS location, I told you about the GS related subjects and their locations which you have to cover, that we will be covering thoroughly, and also the entire last 1 year's current affairs related locations will be completely thoroughly covered, both integrated. No, then only you will be able to recollect.
Yes.
Okay, so we tried to make it more interactive and more analytical, trying to so explain what is the significance, why you have to remember this, and also trying to so picturize that, and we in fact will also make you mark on the atlas then and there. Okay, so and we will have some practice questions and some mentoring support and all. So overall idea is to make this entire mapping exercise easier and better for the students.
Sir, before we end this, any final advice to the student related to mapping specifically for this year paper?
So yes, mapping is a very important section for prelims, and this is definitely not a difficult section. So please don't carry that image, okay, mapping is totally difficult. Okay, so this is totally fun filled exercise. So you want to experience, you can come and join our class. So obviously, so our intention is to make this entire process easier and better for you. So I hope this is going to be helpful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So aspirants, I hope now you have a very clear idea about mapping for upcoming prelims examination. And if you want to know more about smart mapping classes by VisionIAS, please do visit our website. Thank you.